Welcome back to the theory of 1 plus 1, part 2. We're going to focus on addition. Now, if you're not used to my classroom, it's not like the normal classrooms you're going to find at your school. I'm not going to pat you on your head and tell you you're a wonderful person. In fact, I'll probably tell you you're more full of shit than anything else. But that's okay, because you were probably taught to be full of shit. So I understand it. I get you. But enough of that. We're going to get to it. So, what is addition? Well, when we look at the theory of 1 plus 1, we have to add things up. We have to combine things. One of something with one of something else. So as we look at this image, we can ask ourselves, how many eyes do you see in this image? How many eyes do you see? How do you start counting, right? Where do you start? Where do you end? Then ask yourself the question of, how many people do you see? Okay? So first we're going to look at the 2 eyes. We got 2 eyes. 1 eye plus 2 eyes. That's what we can say to ourselves. We can say that there's 2 eyes in this image. What about people? Do we see 2 people in this image? We see parts of people, right? But we're going to complete that in our mind. We're going to say that there's 2 people in there because our mind's going to create the rest of that person. Even though we don't see the person in their entirety, we see their eyes and we will complete it in our mind. We will complete 2 people in our mind exist in this picture. So really, numbers start at nothing called 0. They're empty thoughts, they're empty ideas in our mind, and we have to put something in those ideas. Our minds are so powerful that they can create empty space just by thinking about it, and within that empty space we can add something called 0 to it, which is a representation of nothing, but we could call it 0, right? So numbers start at nothing. There's nothing to them when you have 0 eyes, but that's at least conceptualizing in your mind that there are 0 eyes. That empty thought is your first thought, and it is empty. There is nothing in it, and you add things to it. Maybe you add a car. Maybe you add a chair. Maybe you add a guitar. I don't know what the f you're adding to it, but you had to start with nothing in that concept. In that concept of nothing, nothing is something that is 0. Okay? That's just the way it's gonna be. Now, 0 is the count of something, right? So we start that counting process at 0. You're not born with money in your pocket. You have to put money in your pocket, right? So 0 is the first number containing nothing. That's your starting point. That is where you're going to start at. That is the way electronics and electricity and most devices that you use any sort of power consumption are going to start at a point we call 0. Maybe it's a position of 0. Maybe when you start your computer, it's going to begin at a 0 spot. That first 0 is a number. That is where things begin. That is where they start. There is no 1 in the beginning. There is a 0. We call that position number 0. So 1 plus 1 is really the addition of 1 to a 0, the first number. So if 0 is one representation of something, it represents nothing of that something. So in my little egg carton here, you see that I have 0 eggs in my carton, right? Well, in order to tell you I had 0 eggs, I had to come up with a number, one number. It's called 0. That's where we start. If we add an egg in there, we add a 1 to that 0, right? So it's 0 plus 1 if I add an egg. 0 is that first 1. Let's go back to our picture, okay? Let's try to think this out here. How many green eyes do you see in this picture? How many green eyes? How would you solve this problem? Well, let me show you a way you could solve this problem using the theory of 1 plus 1. First, you could say that there was 0 green eyes in the image. That would just be easy. There's 0 green eyes, right? But we could also say that there were 2 eyes and there were 0 green eyes. So we're going to add first a blue eye to a black eye, and those 2 eyes combined together, well, that's going to give us 2 eyes. Okay? But then we have to conceptualize in our mind. We have to build a green eye in our brain. And we put a number associated to that. 0, right? There's 0 in the picture. And then we're going to look at the other 2 eyes. And we're going to try to imagine what a green eye is supposed to look like. Are those green eyes? Do they meet the criteria for green eye? When we look at those eyes, we say, no, they don't meet the criteria. The only thing we can add to our 0 is 0. We started off with 0, and we can only add 0. So 0 plus 0 is the 1 plus 1 theory. You start with 0, you add 0 to it, you're going to come out with 0. But you have to be able to think about it in those terms. That's how you solve math problems. That's how you will solve your problems in daily life. Whether you believe you do it or not, it doesn't matter. But you're subconsciously doing this. And if you can take away the subconscious part and consciously solve these problems this way, you will solve your problems much faster and you will understand why you're solving these problems like this. And I don't have to keep on teaching you this stuff, and you could be teaching somebody else. So we built a green eye in our mind, and we determined that one number represented that green eye. Is that not true? The one green eye is equal to 0. You will see this later on in algebra. In algebra, you will have a variable. Sometimes they call it x, sometimes they call it y. And x or y can equal 0. So the number of green eyes can be 0. X is a letter, that's one letter. Y is one letter, but yet it can equal 0. So we need to think about this for a second. We need to come to grips with that something, one of something, a green eye, can be 0. An x can be 0, a y can be 0. We can say numbers begin at 0. And we use calculus. Calculus is the addition of 1 to something on them to advance the count of something. The 0, the empty circle in our little diagram here, is our empty thought. And when I say blue eye, I'm going to add a blue eye to my empty thought, right? That's going to put that one little dot there. Then I put my black eye. I'm going to add 1 to that one dot, and that's going to be 1 plus 1. Right? Then I'm going to say green eye, and I'm going to add 1 to that. So I started off with something empty, and I built upon it. I put things in this empty chamber in my brain, and I built it from 0, from nothing. I started off with 0, and I added things in, added eyes in to equal 3 eyes, but I started at the point called 0. And this is how you're going to solve your mathematical problems in life. This is how you're going to solve physics problems. This is how you're going to solve algebra problems. This is how you're going to solve chemistry problems. No matter what field of science you are in, this is where you will start. You will start off with 0, and you will add. You will have an empty beaker, an empty glass, and you will add chemicals in. There will be a count, a measurement of those chemicals, but you will add them in. And you will start with 0. Even if you don't write that 0 down, it's where you begin. But when we look at numbers, when we look at dots, we cannot refer to dots if we have many eyes or many cups. Whatever the number of something is, we can't refer to that as I have 1 car and another 1 car and another 1 car. No, we cannot do that, can we? We have to add these dots, these count, these 1 plus 1s in our mind. And how do we do that? Well, let's see. We have one set of dots. That's our vertical on the left side. And then we have our horizontal set of dots on the right side. And what can we do with that? How do we add those together? The addition symbol is really what shows. You take 2 sets and you put them on top of each other, and that is going to be the count. That is going to be the number. That is where the theory of 1 plus 1 comes from. You have one set of dots, you have another set of dots. Maybe all the dots represent 0. Maybe they all represent millions and millions and trillions of things. But it doesn't matter. In the symbol, it tells us what to do. You're taking one thing and you're putting the thing on the side of it, on top of it, and you're combining it and calling it 1. One group of something with a bunch of little dots. One pile of sand with another pile of sand. Each one of those little grains of sand, it represents that one pile. So we can see that the symbol itself, the addition symbol, tells us what we're doing. And whether those dots are numbers or grains of sand, we have to determine that. We have to use our knowledge and our problem-solving skills to determine where we are going to take this addition. Because there are times when you're going to have addition done with zeros. There are going to be times where you're going to have addition done with large numbers. So in everyday life, we're going to use a base 10 number system. Notice where the base 10 number system really starts. It starts at 0. It goes from 0 to 9. Why does it go from 0 to 9? Did you think it had anything to do with your hands? Do you think 4 fingers and 1 thumb on each hand is going to determine your entire number system? Well, it does. 10 symbols starting at 0 representing our base 10 number system. If you were shown this chart when you first started learning numbers, you were taught correctly. This is where numbers begin. This is what you should have been taught from an early age. Numbers start at 0. 0 is the first part of the theory of 1 plus 1. We have to start at nothing, and that nothing is one number we call 0. We're going to add something to it. As you will notice, the 0 ends up on the 1 underneath it. We call that 10. 10 does not begin the number system with a 0. The number system begins with a 0. Okay? So if you look on the right-hand side, you see that you have 9s all the way going down. From the top to the bottom, there's 9s going all the way down. And if you notice on the left-hand side of the chart, you have 0s going all the way down, right? Because you begin at 0 and you're going to advance all the way to 9. And then when you end up at 9, you're going to begin at 0 again with the next iteration. In this case, it was 1. That's 10. And then you move all the way to your chart to 19, which is 1, 9. And after that, you're going to begin again with the next iteration. What was 1 plus 1? Well, that was 2. But now I got to start over again. 0, 20. But most likely when you were a young person, you were given this chart. You were given, oh, I start off with 1 dog. Yeah, you were born with 1 dog. And then you were born and you had 2 cats. No, you had to acquire those from somewhere. But this is the kind of that they push on you. That number start at 1. And then you notice that 10 magically appears with a 0 at the end of it. But where did that 0 come from? Well, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about the 0. Where did that 0 on that 10 come from? It was the first number. It's not on the last sequence of 1 through 9 and then I get 10. No, it was 0 through 9. That is why people struggle. That is why students struggle. They get to a certain point, and then you're going to get into school, and you know what's going to happen? Your teacher's going to say, well, really, we bullshit lied to you all along through kindergarten through 6th grade. Really, in fact, hey, it really starts at 0. Now you're going to have to change your whole entire thinking because we were fucking lying to you because we thought you were too stupid to understand what 0 is. We thought you were too retarded to understand 0. That numbers start at 0. But I have faith in you. I have faith in you. I have faith when it comes down to it, you're going to realize that 0 is a number. You can test your stupidity. If you come across this box and this box says test your stupidity and insert $100, are you going to insert the $100 or are you going to insert $0? Huh? What are you going to insert? Are you going to insert 1? Are you going to insert 100? Or are you going to insert 0? Well, why don't they teach you that? Why don't they teach you the 0 in the very beginning? Why do they dumb you down, make you so goddamn stupid, okay? And then later on you're going to get into high school and they're going to go, well, hey, all these problems of physics and chemistry and everything you're going to do in science is really going to start at 0. Why do they do that? Because they think you're stupid. They think you're stupid enough never to figure it out, and they have to tell it to you. And then you get confused later on in mathematics. Maybe you're confused in high school or junior high or even in grammar school, but you're going to be confused because the numbers just don't seem to make sense anymore because they lied to you. They ripped you off. I have faith in you that you will see that you don't have to be dumbed down. You don't have to be spoken to like you're some dim-witted retard who can't figure out numbers, who can't figure out what 1 plus 1 really is. Because I believe that when you see that 0 is the first number, it's the first idea, the first concept theory of 1 plus 1, you will be able to continue on and solve problems. You will be able to solve problems like some sort of karate, kung fu, just chopping away at numbers because you will break them down into their simplest elements. You will know that those elements can be zeros. You will know that those
Elements can be millions, or trillions, or quadrillions. You will know how to break these down, and you will be able to build them right back up. Because the theory of 1 plus 1 starts at 0, and you do calculus on them. You are going to add 1.
If you want to keep learning math with a good teacher, you know what to do. Have a good day.